All right, nerds, welcome back to the news. I'm generally nerdy. This is the place to be for all of your pop culture and nerdy news, as it were. So we've got a lot to get through the day, from the surprising to the sublime, not the least of which being a sequel that is 38 freaking years in the making and is still somehow bringing back almost the entire cast. We'll talk about it. We have a full ground up remake from one of the most iconic horror games in gaming history, finally. We also will be digging into why a controversial comic book trope has found its way into the Merriam-Webster's dictionary after something like 26 years since it's been coined. Plus, we have new music from Between the Buried and Me, another look at the return of King of the Hill, and some wild rumors about the future of the God of War franchise. We have, honestly, a bunch to get to, so let's go. Okay, so in the music section, we have the Fresh Prince not being so fresh anymore. There's actually a couple of things to unpack on that one. We have a legendary musician getting knighted. We also have a beloved metal guitarist who has been diagnosed with a fairly significant illness that we have to talk about. We have that and a bunch of touring information. We have some really massive tours from bands like Trivium, Fit for a King, and Theos, etc. So let's just dive into the music section, shall we? Okay, so music, we have no follow-ups or corrections, but we do have some new music to talk about. The first one is, I gotta apologize off the bat, just because apparently a record came out for this artist that I was unaware of 2 months ago, but I have listened to it, so we'll talk about that in this week's episode of That Just Happened. However, we're talking about Will Smith, and he just dropped a new song. I'm pretty sure it's from the record. I haven't listened to the entire record yet. I will, though, before we get to That Just Happened. But the name of the song is Pretty Girls, and there's a couple of issues with this. I don't know if it's part of the record, so we're not going to talk about the record as a whole, but it is out. The name of the record is based on a true story, and this feels like Will Smith really grasping at relevancy. We'll get into greater detail in the episode of That Just Happened, because we will talk about this individually. But man, the really crazy thing about this is apparently he's going back on his promise to his grandma about not cursing in his music, because this song and some stuff off of that new record, he's dropped that whole concept of being a clean rapper and how, he's a positive role model for the youth and etc. like he used to tout in previous records, ad nauseum to a certain degree. So yeah, very, very weird situation there. And I almost agree with some of the conservative commentators who are, talking about how if you really did like Pretty Girls, I don't know that you would have to write a whole song about it. So that seems a little weird, but I mean, it is hip hop culture. So it is something that, being as I'm not a traditional conservative talking head, I do understand a little bit more of the bluster and the posturing and stuff that comes with hip hop culture. So I don't know. There's definitely, I don't think Will Smith is gay. That's what I'm trying to say. That's where we're going with that. So let's continue on. More new music this week. We got a new track from Between the Buried and Me. The name of the track is Things We Tell Ourselves in the Dark. It is the first single from their upcoming new album, which is called The Blue Nowhere. That will be out September 12th. It is also their first new record on their new record label, Inside Out Music. Pre-orders are live for the new record if you want to follow the link in the show notes. So yeah, if you want to go do that, this is a little bit of a departure for Between the Buried and Me. And I say a little bit, but that's just because a lot of the stuff that you expect from this band, even though they are modern prog to its perfect definition because they go all over the map, And in this song, they're kind of all over the map as far as musical genres go anyway. But it feels like this record, judging from some of the interviews they've conducted recently, is very specifically trying to be a bunch of different things and is like branching out into all of their favorite genres and things. And this song is that schizophrenic that totally makes sense. But that's kind of what you expect from Between the Buried and Me these days. So super excited to hear more as we get closer to the release of the record. But go check out the first single. Once again, it's Things We Tell Ourselves in the Dark. It is like 7 minutes long, because again, Between the Buried and Me, so be aware, but otherwise it's great. Go check it out. Oh, and then other new music stuff. Reba Myers, the guitarist from Code Orange and sometimes from Marilyn Manson, she is putting out a solo record. She's also going on a solo tour, which we will talk about in the next section, but putting out a solo record called Clouded World. She put out the title track for that, which again, we will talk about in That Just Happened, but the title track is out. This is actually the third single from this record. The record is set to be released sometime early 2026. No a specific date on that one just yet. But of note for this title track, it was produced by Steve Albini, the late, great Steve Albini, 6 months before he passed. So very probably the last thing he recorded as a producer, which is pretty epic. We'll get into the quality of the song in the episode of That Just Happened that will follow this week, but as it stands, just of note for this, Steve Albini, that's freaking awesome, honestly. That is what we have for new music, though. Let's kick on over to tours and festivals. First thing here is Fit for a King. They are going on the Lonely God tour. Support on this tour is coming from Make Them Suffer, Spiked, and a band I've heard a lot about recently, but still haven't listened to their actual music, 156 Silence. The tour starts October 30th in Phoenix, Arizona, runs through December 7th in Dallas, Texas. There is a link in the description if you want to get tickets, though if it's before Friday, you're gonna have to get a code because I don't have one and it is on pre-sale right now. So go check that out. And then Trivium is our next tour announcement, which this one was anticipated. What with the demise of their previous European tour, they announced we're getting something set up and it's gonna be North American. Well, here's something that's set up. They have support on this one. It is called Ascend Above the Ashes is the name of the tour. The support on this comes from two really interesting bands to be going out with Trivium, honestly, and that's Ginger and Harriet. Ginger, I think, makes a little bit of sense, but Harriet, I feel like is just a little too dark to go out with Trivium. I don't know, I can see Harriet going out with Ginger and somebody else. I can see Ginger going out with Trivium and somebody else, but these three together is such an interesting combination. Anyway, the tour starts October 31st, so on Halloween in Myrtle Beach, South Carolina, runs through December 14th in Orlando, Florida. Once again, tickets can be found if you follow the link in the show notes. From there, we have Entheos has announced they're going on a headlining tour. Support will be from Fallujah, the Zenith Passage, and Tracheotomy. Have not heard of Zenith Passage. Wow, that is a tongue twister. Zenith Passage or Tracheotomy before this, so interested to check those guys out. This one starts a day before the Trivium tour, which is October 30th in New Orleans, Louisiana. Runs through December 6th in Nashville, Tennessee, and it kind of goes all over the place. So there you have a chance to see Entheos on this one, which is a band to see. Continuing on, like I said in the new music section, we have stuff from Reba Myers. Clouded World Tour begins August 12th. It is a very short tour. Starts in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, runs through August 25th, so about 2 weeks of tour in San Jose, California. Really not hitting a whole bunch of dates. I think it's like something like 10 dates. Again, though, you can find a link in the description if you want to get tickets. Our final tour announced since we last spoke is 200 Stab Wounds, which this is going to be an epic tour. It is support from Vomit Forth, and that is why 200 Stab Wounds and Vomit Forth on the same ticket. That is pretty nuts. The Weeping and Spy round out the bill. The tour starts September 8th in Calgary, Alberta, Canada. It runs through August 1st in Covington, Kentucky. So yeah, once again, link can be found in the show notes, which you can find down below if you're watching the video. If you're on the audio, it's just there. Yeah, that's what we got for tours and festivals. Let's talk now about regular ass news. First up, starting on a downbeat, we have the guitarist from Hatebreed, Wayne Lozenak, I think is how that is pronounced, has been diagnosed with a non-cancerous brain tumor. Apparently, the doctors found it in time. That is the reason why he was taken off of the tour in Europe that they are currently on, is so that he could come back and get prepared for surgery. It sounds like they anticipate this going off without a hitch, so he will be out of commission for a while recovering from surgery, and then will return to the road with Hatebreed. Pretty awesome if it plays out that easily, but this is technically brain surgery, so let's just kind of put out good vibes and say prayers or whatever you got to do so that we don't lose Hatebreed's guitar player, because that would really suck. Next on regular ass news, we have Roger Daltrey, the singer from The Who, that guy. He has been knighted on King Charles' birthday, no less. King Charles' 81st birthday, Roger Daltrey was knighted, so now we must call him Sir Roger Daltrey, which is kind of cool because, you know, The Who being the greatest rock and roll band of all time, yes, I put them over the Beatles, and no, I don't want to apologize for it. That's pretty awesome. That just was something that we really needed to just note, just because it's that cool. That's what we got for regular ass news. Let's talk about this week's suggestion. Musical suggestion is Code Orange's first major label record, Forever. This is their debut, and legitimately it is a banger from front to back. You get a lot of the taste of what Code Orange would evolve into. This is still very much rooted in their hardcore origins, but you get that industrial stuff, you get that programming, the technical side of things, and it's just the right amount of flavor. I freaking love this album. Standout tracks on this record are the title track, Forever, Bleeding Into the Blur, sorry. I almost said Bleeding Through, which is a band name, but Bleeding Into the Blur is probably my absolute favorite track on this record. But Hurt Goes On is our third suggested. If you're just gonna kind of breeze through it, those are the three tracks: Forever, Bleeding Into the Blur, and Hurt Goes On. 100% recommend, though, you just let this thing play from front to back. It's like just under an hour long and absolutely worth your time. I seriously love this album. That is your suggestion for the week. Code Orange, Forever. All right, so then next we're in gaming and tech. This week's gaming and tech is kind of a mixed bag of delays and bombshell announcements. So we have Bungie delaying their next giant game indefinitely, technically speaking, but there's kind of layers to that one. We also have Konami and Nintendo dropping a whole bunch of information since we last spoke. We'll talk about those things. We have console-specific special stuff for Metal Gear Solid Delta. When that launches, it'll be different depending on which console you're playing on. Plus, Silent Hill getting a full-on remake. The original Silent Hill, not 3. We already got 2, not any of the other games. The very first game getting full-on remake. There's honestly a lot to go on here. Digging into the new Xbox console and what that might look like, there's a lot to go on here, so we've got some gaming and tech to talk about. Let's get into it. Gaming and tech, we do have follow-ups. I don't think we have any corrections, but we totally have follow-ups this week in gaming and tech. So we're going to start things off real quick with the TikTok situation. We are now aware that a deal is in the process of being made. However, another stay of execution has been ordered, I guess, by the president. So that it's being bumped back 3 months. The report is that the reason they're bumping it back is so that they have the time to work out the details of the deal that is somewhere in the works. I was unable to find who exactly is going to be taking over responsibilities for TikTok, at least as the US is concerned, because that's the big issue, is US involvement and the information that they kind of harvest from there, that China harvests from the app. So yeah, this is reportedly going to be the final extension. There will be no other extensions. If we can't work the deal out by by the time this 3-month extension expires, then TikTok will be outlawed, etc., etc. I don't know if any of that is to be believed necessarily, but we will be keeping tabs and letting you know. From there, we have, oh, this is kind of the biggest, I think, gaming piece we have in this whole, well, I don't know, we've got some really big gaming pieces, but Marathon is what we're talking about. Bungie has announced that they have indefinitely removed Marathon from their release schedule. Now, in a private briefing inside the company, inside of Sony, it has been made known that the new goal is actually March of 2026. So it's not 100% indefinite. It's not like, oh, they've just given up. Though it does sound like that is still on the table, that they could still just back out of this game. In spite of the amount of money they put into it, I don't think that is actually going to happen because of the amount of money they have put into it. But by all accounts, especially, like, you can go watch the Mint Blitz video on this to get really deep dive into the details of what's going on, but it sounds like this is a large part of the issues going on here, aside from the plagiarism stuff that we covered in fair amount of detail previously. A large part of the other issues involved here is management not listening to the developer as to what they know their fans want. Bungie is pretty attuned to their fan base, and a lot of the issues they're having are just Sony mandating things from on high without any knowledge of the project or any knowledge of the target audience. In matter of fact, they've changed the target audience. So if you are a arena shooter player, kind of like Halo, which put Bungie on the map, also to a different degree Destiny, which is their big thing that they're doing these days, then this is not really that. This is still an FPS, so like there is that comparison, but it is an extraction shooter, something slightly more akin to Escape from Tarkov, which is not like Halo or Destiny in the slightest. So really interesting there. As things progress here, we will be keeping tabs. But again, if you want a very great deep dive, Mint Blitz has done about 3 or 4 videos really getting into the weeds as to the plagiarism issue, the mandates from on high, etc., etc. I'll see what I can do to link them down below, because that's honestly where I get a lot of that stuff from. From there, we have the Donkey Kong Bonanza Nintendo Direct that happened this morning as I'm filming this, so yesterday probably as you're watching this, but Donkey Kong Bonanza happened, or I guess the Nintendo Direct for Donkey Kong Bonanza happened, and it looks legit. It's short, it's only like 17 minutes long, so definitely go watch because it's fun. But like there's issues, people are taking issue, this is the weird thing to me. People are taking issue with the timeline of Donkey Kong because and I didn't put her name down in the notes, the companion that you have in this game, her name is the same as the name of the princess, as it were, from the OG, from like the 70s Donkey Kong, where you're Jumpman, not even Mario yet, he wasn't given a name, where you're Jumpman and you're trying to dodge the barrels and climb the ladders. That princess's name was the same, I can't remember, Shiny. Her name is the same as the sidekick that Donkey Kong has in this new Bonanza game. And people are like, well, there's a timeline issue here because technically that Donkey Kong was Cranky Kong and that was not Mario quite yet, though it did become Mario and blah, blah. Guys, it's a platformer designed for children. Well, I mean, at this point, there is certain design elements that are a little bit beyond children, but by and large, it is a Nintendo platformer game. The continuity is the least of Nintendo's worries. They're just looking to make something that's going to be fun to play and therefore sell a bunch of units. The rest of it is on you. If you want to take issue with a family game not having continuity for 50 years, I feel like you need to reevaluate your life. Maybe I'm just an asshole, whatever, let's move on. From there, Oh yeah, definitely go watch the Nintendo Direct about it because it's great fun. But from there, we also have, this is follow-up from last time, the Konami Press Play event happened. We're gonna try and burn through this pretty quick. It is fairly short as well, so you can go watch that. But we got Metal Gear Solid Delta. We got a little bit of information as to, yes, they were in fact kind of referencing multiplayer at the end of that first trailer that we got in the Summer Games Fest. Now we know very specifically that there is going to be console differences in the multiplayer. I don't even know if it was multiplayer. I do remember them saying something about multiplayer though, so my brain is just kind of scrambled. Either way, the game mode of Snake versus Monkey is returning. However, it's only returning on Steam and on PlayStation 5. On the Xbox side of things, it's going to be Snake versus Bomberman because the monkey is Monkey Island Monkey, and that is a Sony-owned property. Bomberman, I don't know who owns that property, but at the very least, Microsoft has the rights to put that in their version of this game. So it's gonna be very different playing one versus the other in that game mode. I mean, the story mode is going to be the exact same from console to console. Maybe there'll be different Easter eggs depending, because I'm sure there's gonna be an office building that I legitimately have played like 20 minutes of Metal Gear Solid 3. Snake Eater just was, I don't know, I got a little too into, what was it, Halo 3 at the time when Snake Eater came out, so I just didn't play a bunch of Snake Eater for whatever. I love the franchise. I've played just about every other game except for Snake Eater, so that's why I'm so stoked on Delta, but I'm sure there's gonna be a spot where you're indoors and there's like a plush, and on the PlayStation version or the Steam version, that plush is gonna be a monkey, and in the Xbox version, that plush is gonna be Bomberman. So it's gonna be little things like that. They're gonna be different from story to story, but by and large, story mode's gonna be the same. All right, so I said we're gonna try and breeze through the Konami Press Play event, and I promise we will. That was just, you know, Metal Gear. We have to talk about Metal Gear. We also have to talk about Silent Hill, but that's at the end. So we got another video for Darwin's Paradox. Actually, no, this was not another. This is the first. I watched it in chunks, so I'm conflating some of these trailers with what we got from Summer Games Fest because I watched it in different pieces. Anyway, Darwin's Paradox is a platformer where you play as a squid. It looks pretty fun. It also looks like it's very shallow in gameplay, but that's neither here nor there. We got some sporting stuff. We got eFootball and eBaseball MLB Pro Spirit. Sure, why not? Suikoden Star Leap is a mobile game coming to Steam as well. It is a new Suikoden game in the same world as the other Suikodens. It takes place just before the story of Suikoden 1 and after the story of Suikoden 7. Or 5 rather. So then we also got Gradius Origins, which is just is jumping on the bandwagon, which is not a bad bandwagon to jump on, of the retro revivals where they collect all of their retro games into one game, because you can't really call it a disc because most people at this point, more than half anyway, download all their games. They don't purchase discs, but whatever. Gradius Origins coming August 7th to Steam, Nintendo Switch 2, Xbox Series and PlayStation 5. We got Deliver at All Costs, which is a new puzzler that looks to be really reliant on gimmicks. So I don't know how well that's going to do. We have Eden's Zero, based on the manga by Hiro Mashima. It'll be out July 15th on Steam, Xbox Series consoles, and the PlayStation 5. Survival Kids, a family-friendly multiplayer RPG. That looks legitimately like fun. If I, had kids, I would probably play it. The Silent Hill F. More stuff about how Silent Hill F is so incredibly Japanese. Like, I don't understand why they're driving this fact home so hard. Like, why everything they do in the media that has to do with Silent Hill F is like, this is the most Japanese game we've ever made. Okay, but is it good? Like, I don't care where the story takes place. I don't care that, like, I do care because I think it's cool that you're basing it on, like, Japanese, there's certain Japanese mythos in there, and like, yeah, that's awesome, sure, fine, but like, why is that the note that you guys keep hitting in all of this press? It does not make sense to me. We've gotten, by comparison, considering it comes out relatively soon, by comparison, we know very little about the actual game which I'm sure to a certain degree is by design, but like we know very little about the story or gameplay or insert thing that we want to know about this game here, because all they want to talk about is how Japanese it is. I'm starting to think that this is a bad sign for gameplay. Like, I mean, maybe I'm just an asshole, but it just doesn't look like it's adding up very well. Staying though with Silent Hill, the next thing that they announced, and this is the last thing I believe that they announced from the press play event, looks like it, yes. Bloober is officially remaking, not re-releasing, not doing, they're remaking the original Silent Hill game, which makes a little bit of sense. So we got Silent Hill 2 first because in the whole scheme of the world of Silent Hill 2 is kind of a standalone story. I mean, there are other standalone stories that come later in the franchise as well, but of the first few games, Silent Hill is the only one that is technically Silent Hill 2 is the only one that is technically a standalone, that, you know, you don't need any points of reference necessarily from the other games. Silent Hill 1, the direct sequel to the first game, is the third game. So it makes sense that they gave us, and also Silent Hill 2 is kind of, there's a lot of other momentous things that happened there. It's what really blew it up in the eyes of the public. It's also the first game where Pyramid Head is involved. Pyramid Head is not in the OG Silent Hill. So it's interesting there. But also, this is technically the second time this game has been remade, remastered, whatever. The first time being the Wii U, or the Wii rather, not the Wii U. The Wii, Silent Hill Origins, I think is what they called that one. But because of the change in gameplay, and also they modified the story a little bit to update it for modern gamers or whatever at the time, and so it just plays very different. There's a lot of added things to it. Sounds like what Bloober is doing is just a one-to-one. We're updating the graphics. Hopefully they get the fog right, because that was a key element in gameplay for that game, and leave the rest of it alone. We don't want the extra stuff on top of it. We just want that OG Silent Hill. And it sounds like that's the direction they're going. So yes, please, and thank you. From there, we have one more follow-up. Oh, this one is a kind of a hybrid of both follow-up information and also new information. So yeah, that's why it's going here. But the whole Warner Brothers games situation. If you remember a few months ago, they were talking about moving forward and focusing, because they've lost so much money on trying to do things to appease people who don't actually play video games. Now they're refocusing on their big four. And the big four, as far as their IPs go over at WB Games, are as follows. We got Mortal Kombat, which by extension is really just NetherRealm Studios. We'll get into why that's a relevant point to make in just a moment. But Mortal Kombat, DC, Harry Potter, and Game of Thrones. So they're focusing heavily on those four properties. And in so doing, they're promoting people from within the company. So from within these other studios, they're promoting people into vice president roles. And we now know exactly how that's kind of shaking out. So Sean Himrick, who currently works, or used to work, I guess, he's currently now the VP of games over Mortal Kombat and DC, but he used to work over at NetherRealm Studios. He was, I don't remember what his title was. I didn't write it down, but I know a fair bit about NRS, and I just can't remember what his title was. He was one of the producers though at the company. So now he's vice president in charge of Mortal Kombat and DC, which again, the reason I think this is relevant is, or the distinction between Mortal Kombat and NetherRealm Studios is relevant because they put one guy in charge of NetherRealm and DC. They're saying Mortal Kombat just because that's how people identify NetherRealm Studios, because the Injustice franchise is not nearly as big as the Mortal Kombat franchise. So now that we know that Sean Himrick is the dude in charge, it seems a lot more likely, and this is totally speculation on my part based off this information, it seems a lot more likely that we will be getting Injustice 3 next, because That is just the way, that seems to be the way the cards are falling for this one. But continuing on with this, we now have, he's also in charge of Sean Himrick. He's also focusing on developing and overseeing new projects, is also part of his job description. And then as far as the rest of the Warner Brothers Games stuff is concerned, we have Yves Lachance, who is from WB Montreal. Her title will be very similar. She will just be over Harry Potter and Game of Thrones. And then we have Stephen Flannery, who is from WB Games New York. He is now Senior Vice President of Central Tech and Services. So it seems like he's kind of the guy over the other two, and the other two have very specific things that they're in charge of. So that's pretty cool. Hopefully this works out in the favor, because these are all fantastic franchises, so, or intellectual properties even, so why not try and get somebody who knows how to work them and do good things with them and knows what the audience hopefully wants. So yeah, that's just where I'm at with that. That is what we have for follow-up. So let's talk about some trailers that dropped that weren't part of, not directly part of the Konami Press Play event, because I think Hades might have been in there. I'm just misremembering things. Whatever. Hades 2 just dropped a trailer. Still technically in beta, but this new trailer is called The Unseen Update. It is free and automatic for everybody who is in the beta right now. It focuses mostly on new combat development, so super intriguing. It looks like it's going to be a blast. I still haven't played the first one, so, you know, poo on me, but our other one is a mobile game that is Marvel Mystic Mayhem. It will be out June 25th. Go watch the trailer. It's intriguing. It is an RPG. It's a Marvel RPG, but the artwork feels very Japanese, kind of a la Tokon, or however the hell you say that, the fighting game that we got at Summer Games Fest. Yeah, super interesting. Let me know what you think after you watch trailers. Let's move on. We have some regular ass news here. And yeah, this is Xbox, the future of Xbox gaming. We now know for sure that Xbox is working on at least one more home console, because they just signed a new proper deal with AMD. AMD is going to be producing the chips that are going to run this new home console. It seems that some of this announcement was delayed until now because they were waiting on new advancements in AI, presumably. Because if you watch the trailer for this, it's very short, it's about a minute and a half. If you watch the announcement, whatever the hell, and they show you the actual chip that goes onto the board that they're working on, one of the markers on this chip is AI. So very much going to be leaning into the AI stuff in the future. So for those of you who are incredibly anti-AI, good luck. There's no avoiding it. And honestly, it is, as much as I, as an artist, want to support artists, I think this is just a new tool that is going to be mandatory for artists moving forward. Like, I don't know that we will get to a point where a majority of things are created by AI. That's just kind of unavoidable at this point. At that point, though, it's not going to be that human-made things are going to disappear. Human-made things are going to become bespoke, meaning they're going to be very expensive and very well crafted, whereas AI stuff is going to presumably be probably still fairly well crafted, but inexpensive because it can just be kind of plopped out on demand. Whereas bespoke things that were made by human hands or designed or whatever are going to take a lot longer and going to have a different feel. I think that is just going to be the nature of art and the arts going forward, is bespoke art, be it game development, which is an art, or food or whatever, is going to be the preference of people who have the money, who can partake, I guess is the way to put that. So yeah. That is where we're at with regular ass news. Xbox is moving forward with AMD. We're going to leave that one there until we get a little bit more. Let's talk about our suggestion for the week. Suggestion for the week, Splitgate 2, just kind of into regular gameplay. We're into season 1, and I gotta keep suggesting it because it's so much fun. It's either that or Mortal Kombat, because those are the things I'm legitimately playing. That's all I have time for. It's all my brain wants to scratch those 2 itches and those 2 itches only. So yeah, Splitgate 2, come find me. I don't remember what my tag is for the crossplay stuff, but whatever, it's fun. Go play, enjoy. It's free. All right, so we're gonna take another second here real quick and remind you that this is the season of the merch. We are pushing merch this season real hard. I just put up the surprise, quote unquote, surprise drop for, I think honestly, I might just keep this one on the store just because I think it's pretty silly. I don't know, I'm proud of myself in my stupidity, but it's the Confused Millennial t-shirt, Confused Millennial design, because it's more than a t-shirt. You got the hoodie, you got the long sleeve, you got the sticker, you got the mug, you got the shopping bag, all of these options up at the general store, linked down in the description of this episode. You can go check that out. Purchase any one of those things. No coupon code right now because we're not doing our monthly shirt. That begins next week. Next week you'll be getting another 10% coupon code with the design for the month, the temporary design for the month, which I think is going to be real juicy for all of you cinema and music nerds out there. So keep your eyes peeled for that. But right now, go check out the Confused Millennial design and all of the other basic nerd designs up at the Nerdy store right now. I thank you, as always, nerds, for checking it out. Again, stay tuned to the Nerdy stores, the general store, for updated designs every month. We drop at least 1 new design every month. Go check that out. We'll see you over there. But now let's finish the show, shall we? So today in comic books and books, we have some fascinating stuff here as well. We'll explore how a fairly controversial trope from comic books in the 90s has finally gotten mainstream recognition. We also have looking at some huge new titles, including a brand new fantasy epic from the creator of The Walking Dead, as well as a new 17+ series that brings the Red Hood back to his violent roots. Comic books is not a forgotten section this week, nerds, so let's go talk about that, shall we? Okay, so no follow-ups or corrections. I feel like I did come across a trailer. I just didn't put it in the notes, so my apologies. Hopefully I'll find it and put it in next week's show because I don't remember what it was. So we're gonna just talk about some regular ass news. How about that? This week's comic book news, we're gonna start with the Merriam-Webster's thing. So there is an infamous issue of Green Lantern, and for those of you in the know, you know where this is going at this point. Green Lantern Volume 3, number 54, written by Ron Mars with art from Steve Carr, Derek Donovan, and Daryl Banks. It was from 1994. This issue has been officially immortalized in the slang of Merriam-Webster's, the slang that is recognized, I guess, by Merriam-Webster's dictionary. What the hell am I talking about? In that episode, Green Lantern's girlfriend was killed and put into a fridge as I can't remember the name of the villain who did it. It just totally, I can see the panel where he does it, and I can't remember his name. Anyway, I can see his face. So the villain who did it puts her in the fridge and leaves a note for Green Lantern to find her, and then it's, oh no, oh my god, which I think is the panel you're looking at on the screen right now. So this has since 99 is when this phrase was officially coined. The phrase is to fridge. Originally, it was called Women in Refrigerators. It was a website started by, at the time in 99, new writer in the industry, Gail Simone. She's now one of the staples of the industry, it feels like. She called this phenomena Women in Refrigerators. Women in Refrigerators refers to female characters. This is how Simone laid it out. This is not how Webster is recognizing it. But how Simone laid it out, Gail Simone, is women characters, female characters who were closely associated with their male superhero or male protagonist counterpart, who are then killed solely for the excuse of motivating the male protagonist. Merriam-Webster's is not quite so black and white. The to fridge phrase that it got shortened down to from Women in Refrigerators is being recognized as a character who is killed or injured violently, and there's a couple other qualifiers they have in there, male or female, traditionally female, who is these things are done to them purely as a motivation for the protagonist, usually male, of the story. So they do recognize that it could go either way, though I think a lot of feminists would not recognize that it could go either way. But that's a whole other argument. I did that years ago on a completely different show, completely different YouTube channel. So, but yeah, it's interesting. Like, it's not exactly the highest note to be entered into the modern lexicon of normies, but still kind of cool, getting the community a little bit more recognition. So there is that. Oh yeah, I have the official definition right here. So to fridge, a usually female character in a movie, television show, comic book, etc. is to kill them off or seriously harm / abuse / violate them in some way as a writer for the purposes of motivating or furthering the development of another, usually male, character. Fridging is considered and widely criticized as storytelling cliche. So, I mean, I don't know. I don't see it. We're not going to get into that conversation. So yeah, we're in Merriam-Webster's dictionary for not the greatest reason. Next up, we have a new book called Skin Breaker. It is new from Skybound and Image. The writer on this project is Robert freaking Kirkman. Of course, you know who that is. Walking Dead, Invincible, come on now. Robert Kirkman's is this new project. The art comes from David Finch. We have color from Annalisa Leone and lettering from Russ Wooten. The synopsis, the elevator pitch for the book is as follows. We have Enor has led his tribe for many seasons, but his time as chieftain is coming to an end. He wields the mighty Skinbreaker, but at his age, he can barely lift it. Will Enor's reluctant heir, Anak, take over before their world falls to ruin? As a bloody power struggle begins, an even bigger threat lurks in the darkness beyond their village. This, I mean, it's Swords and Sorcery by Robert Kirkman. I'm super intrigued by this. I didn't see the release date for it, so I apologize, but I bet if you follow the link in the show notes, it'll tell you the release date for it. Let's say it with me, class. I take amazing notes. That's correct. And then our other piece of, oh no, we have two other pieces here. First up is Red Hood. We have a new Red Hood book coming that is on the new line called All In. It is a 17+ line. It will be debuting in September. The writer for this book is Gretchen Felker Martin, art from Jeff Spokes, and lettering from Becca Carey. This is a promise to finally get back to violent Red Hood, which we really haven't got for a while. We have the plot synopsis thing. Elevator pitch for this one is as follows. New Angelique, a city drowning in corruption, seems to be perfect place for Red Hood to put down roots. There's crime, vice, and sedition everywhere. When Jason discovers a superpowered serial killer who is targeting the city's police, he finds himself sucked into a deadly conspiracy with seemingly no end in sight. But Jason isn't the only person on the scene. Following in his trail is Helena Bertinelli, aka Huntress. Is she here to stop him, or will she join the crusade? What will happen when the two black sheep of the Bat family start working together? I mean, like, it's not Gotham, so it's a little weird, but like, we got some Nightwing stuff where he left Gotham, so like, yeah, sure, let's give this a shot. I really want to see, because a character like Red Hood really needs to be on a mature comic line. So if this is a mature comic line, let's get some mature comics going, man. I'm super intrigued. The art looks pretty good. I'm super stoked on that too, so let's just freaking go. Our next and final piece of regular ass news for comics is from Global Comics, comics with an X. They are a distribution company, I believe. they launched a new app called Watch, which you can access through their website as well. You don't have to download it, but you can. It is a video content hub that highlights quote unquote leading voices in the comic book community. The aim for this is they're trying to connect readers to video content creators, not just the creators of the comic books, but the video content runs the gamut. And they're accessing the video content through the YouTube API, which is going to come into play when we get a little bit further into the explanation of what the hell this is. It is a video platform that you can go access history on characters, history on books. You can go access like news rundowns and things of that sort. Run the gamut from history to deep dives and everything in between. It contains YouTube videos. Again, I'm pretty sure they're just doing this through the API, but it counts those watches towards the creator of the YouTube video. So that's why I think it's API. It's just more exposure for comic content creators, not exactly comic book creators themselves, though there are those on YouTube, and I'm sure some of them will find their way into this platform. So that means all monetization, all the views count towards monetization for the video content creators, which is awesome. I don't know exactly how they are choosing which creators they're putting onto the platform. I'm sure they'll get a little bit more transparent with that as the platform matures. But yeah, super excited for new ways for the content community to really get out there. But like I said, that's the last piece we have of regular ass news. Let's talk about suggestions this week. Suggestion is not a comic book. It is actually a book, and it's a Stephen King book, which is even more weird because I'm not a big Stephen King fan, but Stephen King's If It Bleeds is where the Life of Chuck short comes from. The movie that is in theaters right now, The Life of Chuck, based on a Stephen King short, it's in this. I haven't read it yet. This is my girlfriend's copy. She wants me to read it. So I'm going to read it. You're going to read it. It's going to be wonderful. We'll talk about it next week, and that just happened, I'm sure. But that is our suggestion for the week. I'm just curious what the hell this Life of Chuck thing's all about. Today in TV streaming, we have some great news and some kind of unfortunate news, depending on your outlook on things. But we have one of the recently revived sitcoms that I was very much gung-ho about and super stoked that it even got the notice is officially dead. We also have another look at King of the Hill, a couple more new looks at King of the Hill. We get a little bit more information there, which is pretty freaking awesome. We also have premiere dates for highly anticipated new seasons of Sandman and Foundation. Technically, The Bear is coming out very soon as well, but we've already talked about that. We're going to get into it, though. We also have casting for... that's movies. Truly amazing DC news for one of the more epic kind of comic book stories of the last couple of decades, but it's really divisive because of who wrote it and who is adapting it into an animated series. We'll talk about that. We have quite a bit to do in TV, so let's go. Okay, follow-ups, corrections here in TV. First up is Night Court, officially not going anywhere. Per star Melissa Rauch, they just couldn't find anywhere else to pick it up after it was done at Paramount. I'd imagine they would have come into a lot more issues if they had found someone, because Paramount owns the whatever. So yes, it's not going anywhere, sadly. I think it was 3 seasons that it lasted, the Night Court reboot, and now there is no more. Also, real quick in follow-ups, The Bear starts next week, so get ready for more awesome food show stuff. We have trailers this week. We actually have 2 new King of the Hill trailers. One of them was for Father's Day, was a Happy Father's Day. Was the first kind of taste of what's going on with Bobby. And then the second one is just like kind of a clip from what I would imagine is probably going to be the first episode of the new season. And we get a little bit of what is Dale's wife. I can't even think of her name. Dale's wife. We get Peggy, and we get a good deal of Hank. We get a good deal of Hank. Sorry. First day with the new lips. So yeah, pretty great. I'm definitely on the hype train for the King of the Hill reboot. Go watch both trailers, link down in the video, in the show notes. Next is season 3 trailer for Foundation. Foundation starts July 11th on Apple TV Plus. A confirmation we will be getting the Mule in season 3, so if you've read the books, you absolutely know what that means and how that can get quite exciting. And then Sandman, our final trailer, maybe not the final trailer, but the first trailer for the final season. Season 2, Volume 1 starts July 3rd. Volume 2 is July 24th. And then a bonus episode, so the final, I guess Volume 3, I guess you could call it, is July 31st. The trailer that we got shows a lot of epic possibilities. This final season is going to be an adaptation of Seasons of Mist and Brief Lives. So 2 of the more highly regarded arcs in the Sandman story. Continuing in trailers, and I have a follow-up that I apparently put in the wrong spot because, once again, thank you very much. I take great notes. But for the next trailer is It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia, season freaking 17. We have July 9th for that once it starts going. This is our first trailer for season 17, and somehow I don't know how they've gone for 17 seasons with getting away with this sense of humor, but they still have it. It is still one of the more offensive shows on TV from the looks of this trailer, and yeah, here we go. And then our final piece, which technically is a follow-up, but again, you know, notes and things. We have official confirmation that The Pit is currently filming season 2, and that the streaming date for season 2 is set for January of 26. So we won't have to wait like 3 years before the next season, which seems to be the way of things in television and streaming these days. So super excited that they're not following suit. That is what we have for technically follow-ups and corrections, but really trailers. So let's get into regular ass news for TV. We're gonna start this one on a downbeat because we have, it is learned, I guess I should say, that Anne Burrell, who if you watch the Food Network, you're gonna recognize her face, maybe not her name, but her face for sure. She has passed away at the age of 65, or 55 rather. No positive report on what it was that, you know, that took her. I heard somewhere that it was a cancer related, and then other places are saying that it hasn't been announced, so don't know exactly what it was. But being a food nerd, let's bring this one home a little bit, just so it's a little closer. Being a food nerd and being into food, like I watch a fair amount of food related shows, some stuff on the Food Network for sure. And Burrell, she was a good teacher. I don't know if I was necessarily the biggest fan of her palette or anything like that. She was a good teacher. She was a good ref when it comes to the Beat Bobby Flay. That show, she sat in on that a couple of times. She's definitely been a judge on a number of the competitive shows that they have on Food Network, and she's always good at teaching people. One of my favorite things that she did was the Worst Cooks in America show. I think that was kind of a stroke of brilliance as far as content creation is concerned. I don't know that she was necessarily a part of the genesis of the show, but she was very much a part of the show. Like, her personality is definitely going to be missed over on Food Network. Even if maybe I didn't think she was the greatest chef, she didn't have the best palate or anything, she was a fantastic teacher, and for that reason, at the very least, she will be missed, if not for her kind of crazy, boisterous personality. So we're going to take a moment and we're going to give a moment of silence to Anne Burrell. Okay, let's pick things up. Let's get out of that slump. We have 2 more pieces of regular ass news. First up is Mr. Miracle is getting an animated show. Tom King is developing this animated show, and at least the first season is going to be based on King's run with the Mr. Miracle comic. That run had art from Mitch Gerads. No word exactly when it is scheduled to be released. Just kind of promo art is all we have so far. Not even a trailer for it yet, but it will happen. We'll talk about it. Let's keep tabs and move on. Our other piece of news here in TV is almost a borderline tech news, but I don't know, it seemed more appropriate to put it here. And it has to do with Tubi, the streamer, the free streamer, who a little while ago was bought by Fox. I'm pretty sure we talked about that here on the show. Now they're starting a new initiative on Tubi. They're already full steam ahead on this, it sounds like, too. They're going to be showing a little bit of YouTube love in that they're pulling in popular shows from YouTube to get onto Tubi. Was unable to square away if they're going to be like just disseminating them amongst the existing channels on Tubi, if they're going to create a YouTube channel brand new for this purpose, or if it's all going to be on demand, the video on demand side of Tubi. That part was not made clear, but this is a program that they plan on rolling forward with, continuing forward with, it would seem. They're calling it Tubi for Creators. And so far they've brought in a lot of stuff already. Like I said, we have from the Good Mythical Morning guys, Rhett and Link, they have another show that's hosted by Mythical Chef Josh Shearer called Last Meals. It's an interview show in a similar vein to the Hot Ones, there we go. But it's kind of a different flavor, so pretty cool there. That's already been on its way over to Tubi. So I've never heard of Funny Mike, and there are a few others I also haven't heard of before outside of Good Mythical Morning and the Mythical Crew. If this is successful, because they're bringing over hundreds of shows according to the press release, hundreds of shows onto the Tubi platform from YouTube. No discerning information as to how exactly the creators are going to be compensated for their shows, or what exactly is the criteria for the Tubi for Creators program, exactly how you can enlist. If you're a smaller channel like this, can you enlist and maybe use that as a revenue source or something? You know, they weren't really forthcoming with that information. But if they have said that they are looking to bring more creator content onto the Tubi platform, saying something along the lines of, we're listening to what the customers want, and seems to be YouTube is the biggest streamer, so let's just try and capitalize on that, shall we? Yeah, that's really cool. Hopefully we get a little bit more transparency on how exactly it works, and we can keep tabs on it, but until then, that's what we got. That is the end of the regular ass news. Let's talk about suggestions for the week. If you caught the front of this section, then you'll remember that The Bear Season 4 is next week. So the suggestion this week is The Bear Seasons 1 through 3. There are only 8 episodes each, and absolutely freaking amazing. If you haven't seen them yet, it's good drama. If you're in the food industry, it is one of, if not the best representations of that industry that I have seen on film, because I have been a part of the food industry for 20 plus years at this point. So yes, that's pretty freaking awesome. But also Jeremy Allen White is always a freaking win. So is Punisher. I'm gonna brain fart his name right now, but normally it would have come to me, but the ADHD said, what? So yeah, pretty stoked on the new season for The Bear. We are suggesting this week the first 3 seasons of The Bear so that you can be caught up, because it's absolutely worth it. Even if you binge it over the course of like 2 days, like that's gonna be a really intense 2 days for you, but worth it nonetheless. So go check out The Bear. That is your TV suggestion for the week. All right, so we're gonna take another second here real quick and remind you that this is the season of the merch. We are pushing merch this season real hard. I just put up the surprise, quote unquote, surprise drop for, I think honestly, I might just keep this one on the store just because I think it's pretty silly. I don't know, I'm proud of myself in my stupidity, but it's the Confused Millennial t-shirt, Confused Millennial design, because it's more than a t-shirt. You got the hoodie, you got the long sleeve, you got the sticker, you got the mug, you got the shopping bag, all of these options up at the general store, linked down in the description of this episode. You can go check that out. purchase any one of those things. No coupon code right now because we're not doing our monthly shirt. That begins next week. Next week you'll be getting another 10% coupon code with the design for the month, the temporary design for the month, which I think is going to be real juicy for all of you cinema and music nerds out there. So keep your eyes peeled for that. But right now, go check out the Confused Millennial design and all of the other basic nerd designs up at the Nerdy store right now. I thank you, as always, nerds, for checking it out. Again, stay tuned to the Nerdy stores, the general store, for updated designs every month. We drop at least one new design every month. Go check that out. We'll see you over there. But now let's finish the show, shall we? Today's movie section is a sequel we never ever thought we were going to get, is finally in production and bringing back some shocking cast announcements. It's super huge. Sequel for a huge animated blockbuster has already been canceled. We will be discussing the latest casting for DCU's Clayface because we have confirmations there. We also are looking at a fan petition to save a horror icon location, an iconic horror location, there we go, from the Wrecking Ball. There's a lot of stuff going on in movies, so here we go. All right, so follow-ups and corrections for movies. The big one here is Spaceballs 2. We already knew it was happening, so the fact that everyone's making a big stink about it happening this week is a little silly, but, you know, to each their own, I suppose. But the big thing here is we have an approximate release window, as well as casting announcements, and these are freaking huge. First up, we have release in 2027. So we have a year and a half before we get to lay eyes on this at least. So sometime in 2027, which is really funny because Mel Brooks, by the time it is in theaters, will be 100 years old. And he is returning not only as a producer, because it was his property to begin with, so of course he's producing it. Josh Gad, if you remember, is the one who wrote the script. Josh Gad will also be in the movie, we now know for certain, as the son of Barf, so that's pretty freaking awesome. But Mel Brooks will be returning as Yogurt. No word if he's going to be returning as any other, because he played multiple roles. It's a Mel Brooks movie. He's usually at least one primary or secondary role rather, and then a really quick cameo as somebody else, which always makes me laugh because Mel Brooks. But he's returning at the very least as Yogurt. And then we have Bill Pullman returns as Lone Star, Rick Moranis as Darth Helmet, Daphne Zuniga, will be returning as Princess Vespa. Obviously, we won't be getting Joan Rivers because she has passed, and sadly, so has John Candy. Unfortunately, I'm sure they would have done this movie, though, if they were still around, because why not? It's such a classic. I think all of the primary cast is covered by that list, though we do have new characters that are being cast for this. We also have Keke Palmer coming in as a character named Destiny, Lewis Pullman, aka Sentry, aka the son of Bill Pullman, so it kind of makes sense because he's playing Starburst, who is the son of Princess Vespa and Lone Star, which is kind of hilarious. And then once again, Josh Gad will be playing the son of Barf. So super stoked on this one. Oh my God, I love Spaceballs so much. There was a quote from Josh Gad, which I'm not going to quote exactly. I'm going to paraphrase a little bit, but quote from Josh Gad now that they're announcing these things and they're moving forward with the project, about how he was one of the kids that saw Spaceballs first and couldn't understand why anyone would do a dramatic reinterpretation of a Mel Brooks movie when he saw Star Wars after he saw Spaceballs. I was almost that kid, but I do definitely remember seeing Star Wars, at least on a pirated VHS at my grandparents' house before I saw Spaceballs. So, but still, that 100% feel like that is my spiritual, loving it. Anyway, continuing on. I'm losing my words. Next up, we have Transformers 1. We now officially know that it will not be getting a sequel. It comes from one of the producers on the project has said that it is dead in the water, though there is still a future for the Transformers franchise, just not that branch of the Transformers franchise. And then the other giant piece of casting news this week is Clayface. We now have an official actor to play whichever version of Clayface they've decided to go with. Tom Rice Harries is going to be the one who plays. He has a filmography. This isn't his first movie, but I didn't recognize really anything. Known for roles are not immediately recognizable probably by anybody in the community unless you're more of a modern film buff than I am, which is entirely possible, but I still don't know that he's going to be a face that many people recognize. James Gunn apparently loves this kid though, so let's hope he does fantastic. Like, really was gushing in the announcement for this. That is what we have for follow-up, so let's move over to trailers for the movie section. Trailers this week. First, we have another trailer for I Know What You Did Last Summer, which I feel like is elaborating a little bit more, so we fully or have a better understanding anyway of what Freddie Prinze Jr. and Jennifer Love Hewitt are doing in this movie. And every little bit of trailer that we get is making this movie look less and less appealing, so there's that. We also got the trailer for the new Bruce Springsteen movie called Deliver Me From Nowhere. Jeremy Allen White is always a win. Also, Jeremy, Strong, who was from Succession, also usually a win. I don't think I've seen him in anything bad, but I also haven't seen the Trump movie, so there's that. But yeah, I can safely say Jeremy Allen White is always a win. Even if what he's in is not great, he is always great. And I think that's about all of it that I'm really excited about in this movie. Like, the rest of this looks pretty subpar. Well, mediocre, I guess, is probably more appropriate. Is right in down the middle lane of just like, let's just do what everybody else does. We're gonna take a couple liberties with the life of Bruce Springsteen, and then we're gonna pretend like he's still relevant, which I know I'm gonna get a lot of flack for that because it's the boss and he's a great musician, blah, blah, blah. He was a great musician up through into the 90s, I would even argue. But past that, I feel like he's a nostalgia act and no longer has anything relevant to add to the conversation, be it in the musical side of things or in the now social political side of things, because he started out as a working man kind of dude and now he's Hollywood royalty and is so disconnected from his fans, he has no idea what the hell he's talking about. And I know I'm going to get grief for that too, but whatever, we're continuing on. We do have one piece of regular-ass news this week in movies, and it has to do with Dawn of the Dead, the OG George A. Romero Dawn of the Dead. The shopping mall that they shot that in is the Monroeville Mall. Ken Foree, who was in the movie at the time and has been a horror staple ever since. I actually got to sit down and interview him once, though that interview does not exist on this channel because the file got corrupted on the memory card, and sadly, like, I have a couple of moving images of the two of us in the room together, but none of the audio lines up and the video cuts out really, really quick. So sadly, I can't post the interview, but I did get to interview him once, and he's a really cool dude, as evidenced by the fact that he's trying to save the mall that they shot the movie in. So the Walmart bought the property that the mall sits on a couple years back. They have not said one way or the other what their plans are for that property, though with the way that malls are going these days, it would seem that the mall probably isn't doing very well, and Walmart is a company that is all about making that bottom line, so very probably it will be bulldozed. Ken Foree, once again, has started a petition to try and save this mall. You can find it down in the show notes. It is at change.org. And I mean, there have been conventions held at this mall in honor of the Dawn of the Dead. There's events at this place. They should have a plaque for George A. Romero, but they don't. This is just like such a piece of American history at this point. Like, it makes sense that a preservation act would be underway to preserve it. That's pretty awesome of Ken, and definitely we will be keeping tabs on this one as it progresses. I have not yet checked out the change.org petition to see when it ends and so on and so forth, so definitely, again, link in the description, go check that out. That is what we have for regular ass news. Let's talk about suggestions this week. Our suggestion this week is Dread from, what was the year? 2012. The Carl Urban version of the character, not the Sylvester Stallone version of the character. Though that one has its merits, it is nowhere near as comic accurate as the Carl Urban version. The 2000 AD comic Judge Dredd is kind of like, there is a better version of this that could have been made, sure, but there isn't a better version of this that has been made. And honestly, Carl Urban is the guy. He's the one who's been trying to push for them to make that Mega City show for years and years, because he wants to return to the helmet of Judge Dredd, because Carl Urban's just a badass like that. But to this day, we don't have the Mega City show, and we don't have Carl Urban returning to Dredd, so you must just settle for the original the Dredd movie that he did. It's it's kind of a day in the life of kind of situation. You also get, what's her name that played Cersei Lannister in the Game of Thrones movie. She's the villain. It's honestly just like everything. If you have ever picked up a Judge Dredd comic and you went, oh, well, this would be a really cool movie, you get most of that paid off in this movie. It's just good. It's not deep. There's no like crazy new meaning to cinema for watching it. It's just a hell of a lot of fun. A really great representation.
Subscribe. That is all.
Maybe. It's classified.
And then that only leaves the rumor mill, which is not going to be a slouch section this week either. We have brand new stuff. This week we're hearing whispers of a classic kaiju going to be making an appearance in the next Godzilla movie. A potential return to the world of Mindhunter, which super stoked there, but it's going to be very unique if the rumors are to be believed. Also rumored details on the MCU's Vision Quest series, kind of huge there. With speculation on the new God of War game, the setting therein is going to be familiar but different, as well as some news on the casting for Dune Messiah, which suggests some major departures from the book. So we're gonna get to all of that. There's a little bit more. Let's get rolling. All right, so this rumor mill, we have no confirmations or refutations outside of the Spaceballs 2 thing, but I think we've already covered that, so I just wanted to make sure we said that just in case we hadn't said it before. Spaceballs 2 was a rumor, we covered it here, and now it's happening, so there you go, rumor mill confirmation! We also have no new sources for old rumors, we just have new rumors. So, let's get into these new rumors. First up is literally a giant rumor. Godzilla, the next Godzilla movie, next Godzilla X Kong, is going to be called Supernova. That is not the rumor. The rumor here is that part of the reason that it's going to be called Supernova is because we're going to be getting Space Godzilla in this movie. Hopefully they can finally get it through their heads that the people matter less than the monsters in this. The kaiju are the attraction here, so let's focus on the kaiju and stop trying to shoehorn a bunch of people stories in there. But either way, Super Godzilla, or Space Godzilla rather, sorry, as the villain is, I don't know, is kind of a tall order for people who aren't into the deep cuts of the Godzilla lore, I think. And maybe not, maybe there's a way to do that, and it's been a little while since I've watched anything beyond the black and white Godzilla movies, but yes, any new kaiju that is from those older movies is totally worth it to me, so I'm super stoked about that. This one comes from somebody who is part of the project. It's an allusion that they made in an interview, and not like they didn't directly say, hey, we're doing Space Godzilla, because I'm not under an NDA, so I can tell you everything. That didn't happen, but they did allude to the fact that it's going to be Space Godzilla, so that kind of bumps it up a little high, but I still do think it's a little bit of a tall order to put Space Godzilla into a Godzilla movie, because not exactly like on the tip of people's brains when it comes to Godzilla villains, right? So we're gonna put this one about 70% likely that we will be seeing Space Godzilla in Godzilla X Kong Supernova. From there, our next rumor has to do with the MCU. This one is a little directionless, which honestly is kind of bumping it up towards its favor. But we have an unannounced project, which we know there are a number of unannounced projects. We see their slots on the release schedule. But we have one of those unannounced projects in the works is reportedly going to be a Hercules project. Now, the reason that kind of seems a little bit nebulous is because the rumor goes on to say that it has not been decided officially yet if it is going to be a movie, a special presentation on Disney Plus, or a series. We do know that at some point they did cast the role of Hercules for Thor: Love and Thunder, I'm pretty sure is when we got it. It was Brett Goldstein, though, comedian Brett Goldstein, who was cast to play Hercules. And so very possibly he's going to be returning, though again, it did not specify that he would be the one wearing the Hercules outfit, if you can call it that. So kind of the vagaries are playing to its favor, but also because it is so incredibly vague, I feel like that is playing less than normal when we're dealing with vagaries. So I think it's likely because they already have him cast, and also the fact that there's no specificity as to whether it's going to be a show, special presentation, or a movie, kind of playing its fact in its playing well for it. Playing well for it. So we're putting this at about 60% that there will be some sort of Hercules project in the MCU in the not too distant future. Next up, we have Vision Quest on the list. This is kind of persistent rumor, but new source, kind of a new way to look at it, is why it didn't go in new sources for old rumors. So the rumor is that this series is going to feature, to some degree, Wiccan, Scarlet Witch, and Agatha as a ghost. We already know that we're not going to get the Scarlet Witch. So honestly, I'm changing this because I had this up higher, and then I totally just remembered that Elizabeth Olsen said that she's done playing Scarlet Witch. So I'm going to drop this a little bit, actually. We're going to go on the other side of 50%. But yeah, so we know for sure that Elizabeth Olsen is not coming back. So that part of this rumor is shot dead. But they have cast, to a certain degree, Wiccan, and also Agatha coming back as a ghost. I'm sure she really wants the paycheck, so I can't see why that wouldn't happen. But taking this rumor at face value for all three of them to be coming back, I don't think that's happening. So that's kind of shooting it in the foot here for the percentage-wise. We're going to say about 40% likely this happens. I do think that Wiccan probably will be there, and I would not be surprised, though I could go either way with the Agatha thing. I just really don't think we're going to see Scarlet Witch. From there, though, let's talk about Mindhunter over on Netflix. This is a show that was produced, a show ran rather, by David Fincher, who is the greatest living director, in my opinion, bar none. Like, I don't know that I appreciate anybody's work as much as I appreciate Fincher's. And honestly, season 1 of Mindhunter is a very precise example of why I love Fincher so much, because the entire, just cinematography wise, the entire first season of this show is shot on a tripod. Every camera in this show is on a tripod. It is absolutely stable. There's no handheld motion where they're trying to make you sick when you watch the show. None of that. It is button up on a tripod, just expertly shot, and using it like it's telling the story. And then one of the scenes in the final episode is the only scene in the entire first season that is shot handheld, and it is for a very specific reason, and it is done to a very excellent effect. And that's all I'm going to say, because we're not talking about things like that. We're talking about rumors. The rumor for Mindhunter, sorry, I went off on a little tangent. Rumor for Mindhunter is that we will, in fact, be getting a third season, but little caveat to that, it's not going to be a traditional third season. It's going to be presented in 3 separate parts, and those 3 separate parts will play out effectively like 3 2-hour movies. So 3 episodes effectively for volume 3, as Netflix likes to call their seasons, and each of those episodes will be 2 hours long. I'm super hopeful, super hopeful that is absolutely for sure, but I don't know. The source on this one is pretty good, but it's the only source. Usually I can confirm this stuff from other sources, and that didn't really happen. So because I just want to play it a little bit safe, we're going to split the difference, go right up the middle. It could go either way. We've heard a number of different rumors about season 3 for Mindhunter over the course of the last couple years since it's been canceled kind of over on Netflix, but also Fincher's doing really good stuff for Netflix these days, so like I can understand why they'd be like, all right, let's give it a one last go. So like, yeah, there's enough on both sides that you could really make the strong argument either way, so we're gonna say 50%. And then our next one is a video game rumor. This is God of War. Apparently the next game is going to be Greek themed, so we're moving from Norse mythology into Greek mythology, which if that was the extent of the rumor, I'd be like, yeah, 100%. Of course we're going to go that direction because that's where we were before. I guess it was Roman was the mythology before? Roman gods? No, they were the Greek gods. So we're going back into the Greek gods. Yeah, that makes sense. But then the rumor does go on to say that they're trying to rush the game out so that it is out in 2026. Everyone's kind of trying to really fill up their lists, and there's a lot of stuff being shuffled around, so if they can bump something up and make a little bit of money before somebody else can step on their toes, I can understand why they would want to do that. So it's not really killing it as much as maybe it would otherwise. We're going to say about 80% likely. Generally speaking, video game rumors, from the very few sources I have for such things, are usually pretty spot on, so no reason to think it would be any less likely. And then our final rumor, the regular rumor, because we do have some speculation for this episode, but our final regular rumor for this episode has to do with Dune 3, aka Dune Messiah. At least we're presuming that it's going to be Dune Messiah, because this rumor is a rumor for a cast, and if this is true, then it might not be billed as Messiah. It might be billed as 3, and then they cover the stuff that happens in Messiah, and then also some of the stuff that happens in Children of Dune. All right, so let's get to the actual rumor. I'm totally preambling this to death. So the rumor is that we have cast the children of Paul and Chani. So Ida Brooke is rumored to have been cast as Ganima, and Nakoa Wolf Momoa, aka Jason Momoa's son, has been cast as Leto II. So that is interesting, because the implication there, so the course of events through the second book of Dune, aka Dune Messiah, if you have not read it, then this is not really ruining much. Chani and Paul have babies, even though they're not technically married. Chani is his concubine, and he doesn't really shack up with the wife. But Chani and Paul have 2 kids. Throughout the events of Dune Messiah, Chani is pregnant, and then she gives birth, but they are just little small children by the time the book ends. They are not teenagers. These 2 actors are at the very youngest teenagers. I'm pretty sure they're both pushing into their 20s. I didn't look at their bios to see how old they are exactly, but they're not babies. They're not toddlers. They're older than that. So the implication there is that we're going to see them as teens to some degree. Now, could we have some sort of vision of the future like we had in the first Dune movie, where we got to see Paul's little sister as an adult? Maybe, but if that's the case, then why would you go with, I mean, I don't know who Ida, whatever the hell her name is, Ida Brooke, I don't know who that is, but I know who the Momoa kid is because of his dad, so that's a fairly high profile actor for someone to be on, although I guess Anya Taylor-Joy, also a really high profile actor, especially when they chose to put her in as Leto's little sister, or as Paul's little sister, so I'm brain farting her name, I do apologize. So, I mean, there's just crazy implications there, but it could just be for a really brief cameo. We don't know yet. Denis has been pretty good about sticking to the story in general. Like, obviously, he had to take some sort of creative liberties in order to make it fit even in the 6 hours of movie that we have so far. So there's going to be some creative liberties taken with the second book as well for the third movie. There's enough here that I'm really leaning that this is probably legit. I'm gonna play it a little bit safe and say 70% likely that we'll be seeing Ganima and Leto the second, but I do think there is a pretty strong possibility that that will happen. So that is what we have for our regular rumors. Let's talk about speculation. And honestly, I called it. I'm going to say it again since the movie doesn't come out for another couple weeks, but I totally called it Fantastic Four mid. At the beginning of the year when we were doing our predictions for the year, that's what I said then. After all of the leaks and all of the evidence for what is actually going to be in the movie, and even the current rumors, the current stock of rumors for what we're likely to see, I think the movie itself is going to be disappointing because it's not going to be like this big earth-shattering event. I think there's going to be very key information as far as moving forward in the MCU, but I am putting my money on the fact that this movie is going to be just total middle of the road. It might turn a profit, but it's not going to hit $1 billion kind of movie. It might turn a little bit of profit. It's going to do better than Thunderbolts. I will say that for sure, but I don't know that that's a very high bar to set. I do think they will make some money on it. I just don't think it's going to be the money they're looking to make on it. So yeah, that's my little bit of speculation. I just wanted to reiterate that before, again, we get to that point in the release schedule, and then I said it twice. Anyway, so that's what we got for the rumor mill this week, nerds. Thank you very much. And that gets us into housekeeping. Again, next week looks fairly normal. Probably be pushed back again, like this week is, for different reasons though. This week was more personal. Next week is more medical. So, but yeah, there's nothing really. We're not going to shorten the episode, I don't think. Unless I'm misremembering the schedule. My next thing is Social Distortion, and that's a couple weeks out yet. So next week should be normal. This week everything just kind of went as planned, just kind of had to get offset by a day and a half or so. So that's why this episode's gone up a little bit late. But yeah, I don't have any other housekeeping announcements, so let's just kill it there. Thank you very much, nerds, for joining me for this one. Once again, the only way for a show like this to get bigger is for you to share the show with everyone you know. That is the way things like this grow. Don't forget to like and subscribe if you have not already. The like thing, that's something you can do for every video, so why not do it for the videos that you actually like? Because you can only subscribe once. It just, makes sense. But I appreciate you guys for sticking around this long. If you're here listening to me ramble, then that means you really care, and I appreciate your faces. We will see you in the next one, nerds. Before we go, always remember that if it's generally nerdy, it's probably here.